Hello and welcome back. In today's video, we got another trade rumor video to discuss. In today's video, we're looking at some signings from the past couple of days, some injury updates, and some trade rumors involving the Flames, Sabres, Bruins, and Senators. And we'll get to all that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the N10 Hockey channel. Before we begin this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe below. It really does help the channel, and we're on the road to 500 subscribers, so thank you for all of your support. And also, if you haven't already, don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all that was discussed here today. So in today's video, we got another trade rumor video. Like we said in our last video, we've got a lot of signings to catch up on, so we're going to do a couple of signings here that happened over the past week that I never got around to touching on before. So first, we saw 5 ELCs be given out by 5 different teams. So there's a total of 9 signings we're going to talk about here today. So we're going to start with the 5 ELCs. So first, the New Jersey Devils have signed undrafted forward prospect Xavier Parent to a 1-year ELC with a $875,000. Now, Parent's been spending the last couple of years over in the AHL. Obviously, he's proven enough at this point to earn himself a contract. I think it's only for the rest of this year, so if it doesn't work out, the Devils can walk away from him. If it does work out, maybe they got a decent young player on their hands who could eventually be a solid bottom 6 forward. So not a huge ELC there. He's also one of the older guys too, so interesting note there. But the Devils have signed Xavier Parent to an ELC, and he'll now be able to be called up by New Jersey Devils, so interesting note there. We then saw Vancouver Canucks sign goaltending prospect, 5th round pick in the 2021 draft, 137th overall, Aku Koskinen to a 2-year ELC with $850,000. So this is an interesting ELC. Koskinen has been playing over in the NCAA the past couple of years, so hasn't been able to sign his ELC, finally does. Should be a decent prospect goaltender for the Canucks, maybe eventually could be a decent backup there for the Canucks. Interesting note there, but Koskinen is signing his ELC with the Canucks and will now be able to be in that team's organization. Then we saw New York Rangers sign 2022 4th round pick, 111th overall, Noah Leba, who was a center prospect, to a 2-year ELC with the AAV of $870,000. Leba's been playing over in the NCAA, had 37 points 2 years ago, 26 points this past year. So far this year already has a goal and 3 AHL games in signing this deal, so Laba looks pretty good. Eventually I think he could be a decent, maybe bottom 6 forward there for the Rangers. Interesting note there, but the Rangers have signed Noah Laba to a 2-year ELC. Then we saw the Columbus Blue Jackets sign 2024 2nd round pick, so just from this past year, goaltending prospect Evan Gardner to a 3-year ELC with the AV of $870,000. Now this is an interesting sign there for the Blue Jackets. Gardner's been playing over in the WHL last year in his draft year, playing 30 games, having a .927 save percentage and sub-2 GAA. So far this year has a 2.82 GAA and an 11 save percentage in 44 games. So hasn't had the greatest of seasons, but still Gardner looks like he could eventually be the Jackets starter of the future. So that's a really good sign there for the Jackets to get Gardner on his ELC, and I think eventually it could be a really solid pickup there for Columbus. So interesting note there, but the 2024 2nd round pick of the Jackets has signed his ELC. And the last ELC here is with the Toronto Maple Leafs. If they have signed left shot defenseman John Prokop to a 1-year ELC with the AV of $875,000. He's an undrafted player, so one thing I think is for just the rest of the season. John Prokop's been playing over the NCAA over the past couple of years, had 35 points in 36 games last year. So for this year, had 27 points in 36 games. Remember, as a defenseman, so looks like a really good offensive guy on the defensive end. I think eventually could be a decent 3rd pair defenseman there for the Leafs. So interesting note there. But those are the 5 ELCs we saw from over the past couple of days, as Laba in the Rangers organization, Prokop in the Leafs organization, Koskinen in the Canucks organization, Parent in the Devils organization, and Gardner in the Jackets organization have all signed ELCs. And then we also saw 4 players sign extensions. So first, we saw Vancouver Canucks sign AHL player Linus Karlsson, who's a left winger, can play center, very versatile guy, to a 1-year contract extension with AV of $775,000. Not too surprising there. Karlsson's been having some pretty good seasons over the past couple of years at the AHL level. I think he's had like 27 points in 30 games this year, also has a goal in 12 NHL games, after he had a 60-point in 60 game season last year over in the AHL. So Karlsson has been killing it over in the AHL over the past couple of years. I think he should be in the next year or two a really solid bottom 6 forward there for the Canucks. So to see him be signed to a 1-year league minimum extension is not too bad. I think that could be a really good pickup there for the Canucks. So next, we saw 2 interesting contract extensions happen. First, in Montreal, they have signed Lucas Condotta to a 2-year league minimum deal, and then the LA Kings have signed Joe Hicketts to a 2-year league minimum deal. Now, both of these guys are older players, the more AHLers at this point in time. Condotta's 27 years old, Hicketts Hicketts is 28. So they're both on the younger side of things. Both have been serviceable players. Both have a couple of games at the NHL level. Hicketts hasn't played at the NHL level in a couple of years. Condotta's been playing mostly at the AHL level, but he has had a couple of NHL stints over the past couple of years. I think Condotta could be a decent call-up option, or maybe even a fourth-line forward. Hicketts should be a call-up option for the next couple of years on the Kings blue line. So some interesting extensions there, as the Kings sign a depth defenseman and the Habs a depth forward to new deals. And then the biggest of the last few signings that we're talking about here today is the Buffalo Sabres, as they have signed Jacob Bryson to a one-year deal with a view $90,000. Now, Bryson over the past couple of years has basically been the team's 7th defenseman. There's been a couple of times where he's been solid third-pair guy, but he's mostly been a spare defenseman. 2 years ago, had a goal and 9 points in 59 games. Last year, almost matched his point total with a goal and 7 points in 8 games, but only played 36 games last year. So far this year, at 7 assists in 44 games. Like, he's a very solid 6'7" guy, can get into the lineup if there's injuries. So I like this sort of deal for Buffalo. Serviceable guy, can be sent down to the minors, have his entire cap hit buried if they feel like it. And I think Bryson at $900,000 is a really good steal of a deal. So interesting note there. But the Sabres have signed Bryson to a one-year extension. The Canucks have signed Karlsson to a one-year extension. Condotta in Montreal and Hicketts in LA get 2-year extensions. And then we also saw those 5 ELCs. So interesting note there. Next, we'll go to a couple of injury updates. So we have a couple of injury updates to talk about here from our past couple of days. So first, New Jersey Devils forward Ondrej Palat missed his 2nd straight game over on Saturday with an undisclosed injury and is out day-to-day. So it's a bad blow there for Devils. So already missing Jack Hughes right now due to injury. Losing Palat is going to lose another element of that forward group, so that's a bad blow there for the Devils. King Guhle skated on Saturday in a non-contact jersey, which is another step towards returning for the Canadians, and still hopes to return before the end of the season, so we'll have to wait and see if he does want to returning. That's a big step forward there for King Guhle. For San Jose, Marc-Edouard Vlasic missed Saturday's game with upper body injury. It's the same upper body injury that gets him out for the first part of the season, and he may be out for a while. It seems like he's still evaluating what sort of an injury this is and what sort of precautions he'll have to take. So it doesn't sound like Vlasic is going to be returning anytime soon, so hopefully Vlasic will be able to recover. Well, Henry Thrun, who has missed 2 weeks with upper body injury, should return to practice on Monday. So interesting note there. Thrun's a decent third-pair defenseman at this point in time for the Sharks, so to see him get back into practice after missing a couple of weeks is really good stuff there for San Jose. Colorado's Sam Girard missed Saturday's game with a lower body injury in his day-to-day, so it's a bad blow there for the Avalanche. Girard's been a very fantastic second-pair defender over this past year for the Avalanche, so to see him go down with an injury, not overly great. Hopefully he'll return in the not-too-distant future. Boston's Marcus Stelic missed Saturday's game with upper body injury and will miss at least a week because the Bruins are on the road trip and he was sent back, so hopefully Stelic won't miss too much time, but that is another bad injury blow for the Bruins. Florida's Brad Marchand, who has been dealing with an injury over the past couple of weeks since before he was dealt to Florida, should make his Panthers debut at some point this week, so that could be a really big boost there for Florida to get Brad Marchand back. It doesn't sound like it's a definitive point when he will return, but it does sound like he is nearing a return for Florida. Calgary's Mackenzie Weegar missed Saturday's game due to a lower body injury, but should be back on Tuesday, so that could be a really good boost there for the Flames to get Weegar back, who did miss Saturday's game in the win against the New York Islanders. Well, Yoel Farabee missed Saturday's game due to an illness and is out day-to-day, so hopefully he won't be out for an overly long period of time too, but interesting injury update there. Chicago's Jason Dickinson and Alec Martinez both left Saturday's game due to undisclosed injuries and are out day-to-day, so hopefully Martinez and Dickinson, who are pretty big pieces to that Blackhawks team, won't be out for an overly long period of time and should be able to get back in the not-too-distant future. Colton Dach missed Saturday's game with elbow injury and is day-to-day for the Hawks, so Dach was called up a couple of weeks ago and has actually been fitting quite well in Chicago, so hopefully he won't miss too much time with that injury. Nils Höglander and Elias Pettersson both left Saturday's game against New York Rangers due to injuries and will be out at least the next 3 games for the Canucks as they finish up this road trip, so that's really bad blows. Pettersson and Höglander were doing really well in the Canucks top line, so to see those two go down with injuries is not overly great. Well, Thatcher Demko, who's been out for 6 weeks with a knee injury, was active off of injury reserve and returned to game action on Monday, so that's a really big boost there for the Canucks to see Thatcher Demko get back into the lineup, and that's going to be a huge improvement on their goaltending core. Buffalo's Jordan Greenway left Sunday's game with a lower body injury and didn't return. Greenway's already missed so much time this year due to injuries. I hope that he's not going to be out for an overly long period of time. So interesting note there. Columbus's Sean Monahan, who's been out since January 7th with a wrist injury, and Erica Branson, who's been out since mid-October October with a shoulder injury, were both active off of injury reserve and returned to game action on Monday. So big boost there for the Blue Jackets to get Branson, who's a decent third pair defenseman, and Monahan, who's their top line center, back into the lineup. Winnipeg's Gabriel Velarde has suffered upper body injury over the past couple of games and is not going to be out week to week. So that's a horrible blow there for the Jets. Velarde's been a stellar top 6 player there for the Jets, so hopefully he won't be out for an overly long period of time. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl will not play this week due to their respective injuries. So hopefully McDavid, who's been out for a couple of games now, and Draisaitl, who's also been out for a couple of games, are going to be returning in the not distant future, but they will not play at all this week. And then Detroit's Jeff Petrie, who's been out since January 2nd, was active off of injury reserve and returned to game action on Monday. So big boost there for Red Wings to get Petrie back on the defense, of course. So interesting out there, but those are all the injury lists from the past couple days. Good to see guys like Monahan, Demko, Thrun, and Guhle all either get back into game action or start the recovery to returning. And hopefully they won't look too bad in their return. So bad news to see guys like Palat, Vlasic, Girard, and Weegar all be out with injuries, and hopefully they won't be out for an overly long period of time. But some interesting injury lists from the past couple of days. Next, going over to just a couple of quick notes here. First, when it comes to some records, Alex Ovechkin is only 6 goals away now from breaking Gretzky's record. It won't be too long before he hits the mark and he breaks Gretzky's record. So it'll be interesting to watch over the next couple of games if Ovechkin does hit it at some point before the end of the season. When it comes to another interesting record that was broken, Kiefer Sherwood is now the all-time single-season hits leader in the NHL. He surpassed Jeremy Lauzon's hit total that he produced last season for a single season, as Sherwood hit 384 hits in a single season. It still has a couple of games to go. So Sherwood's been a really fantastic ad there for the Canucks. Also almost has 20 goals. So really good stuff there for Sherwood, as he's been a fantastic find there for the Canucks. And lastly, Patrick Maroon over on Saturday did mention that this will be his final season and he plans on retiring after the season ends. So Maroon's been a really good player. I think he helped the Bolts win a couple of cups. He helps the Blues win a cup too. So he's definitely got a couple of Stanley Cups under his belt. Been a really good player there for a long period of time. So Maroon's had enough of a career that he's decided that he's going to call it quits at the end of the season. So interesting note there. But those are all the other little updates we want to talk about here today. And lastly, going over to a couple of trade rumors. So we got a couple of trade rumors here to talk about. Just a few things here that I want to mention. So first, when it comes to Ottawa Senators, according to a recent Athletic article I was reading, apparently the Ottawa Senators writer on the Athletic was talking about the Sens and what they could try and be looking for this offseason. Now, the Senators at this point are not looking towards the offseason. They're in the first wildcard position. I would really like to try and make the playoffs this year. They're not in a guaranteed spot by any means, but I do still have a nice 4-point cushion on the second wildcard spot. So they'll still need to win a couple of games to prove themselves and get them into that playoff spot. But when it comes to the offseason, he mentions that there's a possibility the Sens could be looking for a top 6 winger. Now, I would say that's probably a good idea. They made some interesting moves at the deadline, acquiring Fabian Zetterlund, who I think is going to be a solid top 9 forward for the Senators for this year and for the future. They acquired Karlsson, who's fitting in quite well as a second-line center. So they're pretty much set down the middle. But I could definitely see them try and add maybe one more winger. Name that I've seen a lot of Sens fans, not maybe actual media, but fans, try and say that the Senators should go after would be Brock Besser. Besser going to Ottawa would be a lethal fit there for the Senators. Like, I'm not sure if they want to pay the money that Besser's probably going to be looking for, but I could see something like that where they could get like a top 6 goal scorer, maybe someone who can play with Tim Stützle to sort of be that fit. They may already have in Fabian Zetterlund, so I'm not going to say that it's a guarantee they'll go after a top 6 winger, but I can't see the reason for them trying to maybe go after some offense this offseason. Wouldn't be surprised if they maybe moved a guy like David Perron, or if they didn't bring back Claude Giroux, even though I do think they will do that. So we'll have to wait and see on that, but it does sound like the Sens might try and target some top 6 help in the offseason as one of their things that they'll be targeting, so we'll have to wait and see on that. When it comes to the Buffalo Sabres, it's gone horribly wrong for this team this year. They were hoping to be in the playoff spot, or at the very least contending right up there with teams like what right now is Montreal, Ottawa, the Rangers, the Islanders for playoffs. It's not happened, so it seems like there's going to be some major changes coming to Buffalo. Some people even wonder if Lindy Ruff, who was hired last offseason, could already be fired in this upcoming offseason. Some people also think that Kevin Adams, who's been there for I think a couple of years now, maybe his leash has run out and he could be fired. So it does seem like there's a very likely chance that management will potentially make some coaching or GM moves in the offseason. After that, it definitely seems that the Sabres might make some big moves in season. I've seen some people talking about Bowen Byram, like his cap hit, it's probably going to go up to like the $7, $8, $9 million cap hit after this season. season that he's had this year. And with them already paying Dahlin 11 and Power 8, do they really want to pay Byram that much as well? So some people said maybe Byram could get moved. There's a lot of talk about JJ Peterka just before the trade deadline. So a lot of people have been wondering maybe that could be reignited in the offseason as a potential option. The Rangers were a team who was heavily interested in Peterka before, so we'll have to wait and see. But I'm not sure what sort of moves the Sabres will make, but I definitely think they need to make some moves because this season has not been overly great. And whether that's moving Peterka, moving Byram, moving Tuck, who was mentioned at the trade deadline, maybe moving some lower end guys, trying to tinker with this roster, they need to do something because the Sabres fan base has been suffering for long enough and they really do need to have playoff hockey. So it's going to be interesting to see if the coach remains here, if the GM remains in Buffalo, or what sort of moves they'll make. But it does seem like major changes will be coming in the offseason for the Buffalo Sabres. Next, going over to the Boston Bruins. There were some recent interviews after the Boston Bruins' latest loss with the Los Angeles Kings. It definitely seems that there might be some divide in the Boston Bruins locker room. It seems that they're very, very frustrated with how this season's gone, and that's led a couple of people to wonder if maybe Jeremy Swayman could get moved. Now, I don't think it's a very likely scenario. Personally, I think Swayman will stay, but Swayman still has no trade protection until next season, so there's been some talk about maybe Swayman being moved. Now, I think that Swayman is still a really good goaltender. I don't think all of the problems have been his fault. I mean, he hasn't had Hampus Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy probably half the season, so like I think the defensive woes due to injuries are probably one of the more likely scenarios as to why Swayman hasn't had an overly fantastic season. So I don't think they will move him, but I have seen a couple of people, not maybe major insiders, but definitely I've seen a couple of people say maybe Swayman could get moved. I personally don't see it. Like, I think the Bruins would have to have like a solid goaltender coming back in return if they were to try and move him. So we're gonna have to wait and see on that, but it's an interesting scenario. I have talked about Swayman being moved before, but that was back when they had Linus Ullmark, and I thought they would probably try and keep Ullmark instead of Swayman, but they decided to keep Swayman. And I think he will stay with the Bruins for a foreseeable future, but it's just interesting to see some people say maybe Swayman could get moved. I personally don't see it happening, but interesting concept there about the Boston Bruins. And lastly, going over to the Calgary Flames, Darren Dreger was saying that they are poised to make a big move in the offseason when it comes to offer sheets. Now, we've seen how well the offer sheets have worked out this year for the St. Louis Blues. I mean, Broberg and Holloway, who at the time of the offer sheets were looked at as overpayments, and it was good that the Oilers didn't wind up matching them because those guys were overpayments, but they have looked phenomenal on the Blues team. Holloway's looked fantastic in the middle six for St. Louis, and Broberg's been a solid top four defenseman, and those deals look fantastic for St. Louis. So at this point in time, it looks like maybe more teams could consider offer sheets, and Calgary might be one of them. They do have a lot of draft capital, so they could try, and I wouldn't be surprised if they targeted a team who's in a really difficult cap situation, maybe try to target someone where they can move maybe like a second round pick or a third round pick. Not sure if the Flames, with the position they're in right now, would go for an offer sheet where they would have to give up their first and third round pick for next year, but I do wonder if they could potentially make some sort of move. Now, I think they're glaring holes probably on their blue line. They have a decent forward group, but their blue line's definitely left something to be desired of. I think they do have a decent prospect here in Zane Parak, which I think could be a really good prospect as soon as next year for Calgary. They already have a really solid forward group and some pretty stellar goaltending, but I definitely think adding another defenseman could help them. So like cap-strapped teams, part of me wonders if they could maybe target a guy like Bouchard. I highly doubt that, but if McDavid's going to get us a contract extension, would the Oilers really be able to fit a big term deal? But I think if the Flames really want to overpay for Bouchard, you're probably looking like 3-4 first round picks and an offer sheet. I don't think they want to do that. Other guys that could turn out to be a guy like Noah Dobson or Bowen Byram. Both those guys are going to be commanding really high asks, and if Buffalo or NYI don't really want to match those sort of asks, I wouldn't be overly surprised if the Flames took Renzo Dobson or Byram in the offer sheet market. So we're going to have to wait and see on that, but Darren Dreger does think that the Flames are gearing up to go after someone in the offer sheet market this offseason, and it could be a bigger name player. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. But that's what I want to talk for today. I left your guys' thoughts on all this down in the comment section below. What was your opinion on all of this? Do you think the Flames go after someone in the offer sheet market, and who could that be? Do you think the Bruins have any potentiality of moving Swayman, and if so, where do you think he could go? Do you think the Buffalo Sabres will make major changes this year? Is it the GM position? Is it the coaching position? Do they wind up making some big trades with players? Definitely get your thoughts on that. And do you think the Ottawa Senators will go after a top 6, top 9 forward in this year's offseason? Definitely, I'll have to get your thoughts on all that down in the comment section below. That is all I'm going to offer today. Remember to like this video, and if you like to subscribe below, it really does help with the channel, and we're on the road to 500 subscribers. Don't forget to leave a comment. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts on all that was discussed here today. I also have a blog to make news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that, so check that out. I've linked that down in the description below, and I can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.